Beerus is Fusion World's prominent control deck, pressuring with critical hits in the early game and pivoting to a complete board control game plan in the late game. Welcome to Archetype 101. I'm Espira and we'll be breaking down Red Beerus. We'll be going through what the deck aims to do, an example deck list to get you started, and then finally some gameplay to see how it all plays out. Without further ado, let's jump into it. Beerus is a red leader released in Awakened Pulse. His critical frontside denies the opponent their life, sending it right to drop if he deals damage. This does come at a cost of drawing a card on attack, however, though balanced by getting a little 5k juice. Once awakened, Beerus pivots to the most controlling leader in the game, being able to give a battle card minus 10k during the main phase. This control style gameplay is maximized when combined by additional removal, such as this 5-drop Beerus, allowing you to KO every 25k or less on the board. Naturally, the deck also makes great usage of extra card removal, such as God Kamehameha, allowing you to take out large targets at a low cost. The strength of Beerus' ability allows him to be one of the most effective leaders at dealing against any and all battle cards currently in the game. When it comes to Beerus' support, it's a little bit wide-ranging because he's very generic. He isn't tied to any specific archetypes, and any card that allows him to destroy cards on board or neg even further than the 10k he already does just allows him to extend his game plan with really anything red has access to. With that in mind, let's check out a deck list. When it comes to building Beerus, we really lean on the strengths that this leader applies. So how can we get the most usage out of being able to attack early with crit hits and starting to slowly get our hand advantage going because we don't draw on swing, and then from there extending into the control game plan while keeping some finishers in mind. In that regard, our 1-drops are all really aligned to either drawing us cards or leaning into the board destruction abilities. We've got 4 of the Whis activate main, so annoying on board. Just even having 1 stick around for the entirety of the game makes a huge effort towards actually keeping the board clean from our opponents. Means that they can't get any cantrips on early game, which is really important because oftentimes your opponent's going to want to use 1-drop cantrips to try to help and stave off some of the critical attacks that Beerus is able to blow. From there, we've got the Master Roshis. It's very hard for me to build a red deck that doesn't include 4 of each. The Awakening Roshi is huge, especially if you recognize that your crit side's not how you're going to close out the game. Being able to awaken early means that Beerus gets to do board control stuff that much earlier. Cantrip Roshi, not much to say there. Hit Self-Awakener again, additional board control. Bua is fantastic as a 2-cost minus 15k can provide a lot of additional removal for the deck. And the 10k combo is super neat. We do need ways to be able to provide an aggression in the deck, and the 2-drop Goku is fantastic in that regard. Having a 2-drop that's a 25k means that we can actually attack decently well into Broly, which is a big deal. Like it or not, we're gonna have to warp our game plan towards dealing with Broly. And this game sometimes can find itself in positions where it is easy to aggress your opponent early, but closing out can be a little tough. So having more efficient attackers in that regard is great. 3 Krillins just to push our self-awakening a little bit more. 2 Shins, this is the one that gives your leader a 10k boost. Obviously really good when your opponent's on the crit side, but is actually really good when he's on the awakened side as well. Swing for 30k is huge. Swing for 30k that you don't have to use a card from your hand at all is fantastic as well. And every turn Shin stays on board for longer is more and more ways that you're allowing yourself to get free hand advantage over your opponent. They're gonna have to combo, you don't have to, and in that way you're kind of equalizing the fact that you're not drawing cards early in the game. Goku is a phenomenal card, combos incredibly well with Beerus, being able to KO 20ks or less, which means with Beerus on his awakened side is actually 30k or less, has the benefit to also help you self-awaken if need be. Fantastic card, super strong. Honestly, I'm starting to kind of fall into the idea of, yeah, this card's really balanced for having 0 combo, because if it had any combo, it'd be really strong. Generally, opponents aren't going to be looking to be playing too many small drops when it comes to dealing with us, but sometimes your opponent's board may do that. So Gohan allows us to wipe away a board full of 1-drops. Sometimes Frieza decks are able to deploy out a bunch of 1-drops and 20ks and stuff like that. So being able to get rid of a 20k using our leader ability in combination with Gohan is nice, and if you're able to get a couple of 1-drops in there, all the better. We are running vanilla Frieza here, and that's a concession to the Broly matchup. Just having battle cards that can attack into Broly is a really big deal, and the additional 10k combo is really appreciated, especially when sometimes red can be in a position where it feels like it doesn't have too much combo power, especially with a low hand. Frost is obviously just there for the yellow matchups. While it's not going to win us the matchups, it can very much buy us the additional turn or 2 that we might need to be able to kind of restabilize everything. I do like 1 UI Goku. I don't own more than 1 on the account, so I couldn't even run 2 or more even if I wanted to, but I do think 1 is the sweet spot in terms of being able to sneak in some cheeky wins, especially with the Beerus leader of being able to neg something by 25k means that depending on what your opponent plays, you can put yourself in a position to really wreak a little bit of havoc. I like having in my back pocket as opposed to say the third double striker, even though you could just run 3 double strike Gokus and that would be perfectly fine. Gohan obviously lines up really well with giving something minus 10k with your leader that's minus 20k and is a 25 crit attacker, which huge, especially in kind of this green meta that we live in. Helps with board control against yellow as well. The one-off Beerus obviously just kind of help us late game if we're up against, again, yellow, can clear up some boards. In the green matchups can get rid of a Selku all by itself, which kind of nice in the way that it curves out. But it has some niche usages, and I will say when you're looking at the red top end, it can be really tough to decide what to include over what not to include when we've got so many 0 combos. So I'm taking in the one Beerus. I don't think he's absolutely mandatory, but I do like the flex of having a late game bomb that's able to board wipe if we're ever finding ourselves in that position. Again, double strikers, we just need to close out the game. No reason to not include it. You could include 3 copies like I was saying, as opposed to running the one UI, and I think that would be fine. We've got the 4 Shin. We've got the one of Mafuba, which is just additional removal to be able to combine with our leader ability to be able to get rid of 25Ks off the board. And then, as talked about in the overview, God Kamehameha in combination with our leader ability means that any 40k on board is a threat to be removed. And then if we're looking at trying to get rid of Broly's, we can get the additional 5k from a Whis, we can get, you know, the additional ping from a hit or from a Fuwa. Lots of options in our deck to be able to get that in range for God Kamehameha to be able to close it out. In terms of options Beerus can run, it really is just the world Scissorcer. Because he's so generic in kind of what he does, you can really go with anything. I will say things like, you know, one drop TNs and other similar cards like that don't lend too well to this kind of strategy. I don't think you really want to be that kind of aggro strategy, especially when you're looking at the fact that cards like those will lose their value in the second half of the game. But if you want to explore with things like more control with Fuwa, I've seen some people play the Botamos. I've personally tested leaning more into a little bit of a U6 package. So again, the Botamos, having the Frosts, more cards like that. Or if you want to lean more into crit, you could do the Beerus thing. I do think if you do like crit turbo, where you're only running like the Vegeta crit and the Beerus crit and only running the crits, while you can apply a lot of pressure early, especially with your crit frontside leader, losing out the gas into the late game is really, really rough. So I go for more of a mid-rangey control style, but you could run a crit build as well, and that wouldn't be too terrible. With this sample deck in mind, let's see how it plays out in a couple of games. All right, so here we've got a matchup against Goku Black, and you know, here the crit against crit matchup can be very tough just because you're working with little cards on both ends, and so getting the most value out of your cards is definitely where you get the most value. The biggest thing that I can say though is that blue has a really big advantage here because they've got the cycling, because they have access to peel off loop. So here my game plan really is to try to mitigate what my opponent is doing, kind of hope for the best in terms of them not seeing their Goku Black and not seeing their Self-Awakeners, and just trying to balance the game out there. Maybe I can push into a longer game where I can balance out being able to manage the Goku Black, but it's a really weird matchup for Beerus and not one that I'm hyper fond of. I do think it's one of the harder ones for Beerus to deal with because of how explosive Goku Black is, and he does need to sustain a board to really execute on the game plan. So here, you know, we're able to awaken early, and the reason I awaken early is because that means if the opponent swing for 20k crit, I can just combo 5k from there and get out of range. Here they play a Self-Awakener, and now I'm in kind of a consideration battle of, okay, they're going to go to their turn 4, and I know that they're unable to awaken plus do the Goku Black stuff of playing the Zamasu and stuff like that. So I feel safe here going for a hit, slowly drawing cards, or establishing a bit of a board so that once he is awakened, we can start pressuring and attacking in here. Here we do see the Final Hope Slash, bounces our Krillin, which we don't particularly mind too much. We don't want to take hits where we don't have to. So we go and defend it. Now here I have a decision where I'm like, I'm not necessarily sure what I want to do. There's nothing great to play, so I actually just opt to pass. And the reason for that is because like at 5 energy, he's not awakened yet, so he can't awaken and play a Zamasu and play a Goku Black. So I can at least reprieve one more turn, and I didn't really have any great plays anyways. So here he just goes and hard plays into a Goku Black, gets some draws, I'll put some pressure on us. And hand size still kind of similar, right? We have a bigger hand size, we have lower hand size. He's over at 6 cards in hand, and now we're just trying to know. We know that they can go into it next turn, they could play a 1-drop Self-Awakener, go in from there. So there was no better time than now to kind of do the thing. Here we can combo Whis and hit to be able to get the Goku Black off board and apply some pressure. Finally now Goku Black's awakened, and the big thing that we have to remind ourselves when we go into this turn is the fact that Goku Black is going to be able to go into his combo with the Zamasu. Here I thought about comboing away the Whis. I'm like, odds are he plays the 1-drop Zamasu that bottom decks the Whis, But you know what? In the off chance that he doesn't, I do like the additional 5k to be able to manage the board a little bit. Unfortunately, did have it. So something that we could have played around, but I kind of took a gamble there. And then here we go with the Goku Black. And the Goku Black opponent's going to be dealing a little bit of board control. Unfortunately, our hand's not very comboable here. And we're in a very tough position here. Goku Black, we protect our 3-drop here because we kind of figure any shot we have at staying into this game is going to be via applying pressure to his leader and then potentially going for a game with a double strike or something of the sort. So swing at his lead, try to get cards out of his hand. He does go down to 3, which we don't particularly mind. And again, I said, like I said before, we're swinging to try and see if we can clear out part of the board. And here staying at 5 is kind of nice because we do have the combo between using our hit to apply more damage, or at least attempt to, and we still have our leader ability tied in with the 3-drop to be able to get rid of the crit attacker, which is the crit attacker is the biggest thing because with the low hand size we have, not getting additional cards in our hand can be quite threatening. So here we're going to try and get in. Opponent has a Galley Gun, so is able to get out of there and essentially cost no cards, but we still have a board. And I think that's the big deal here is just we're in a position where we want to be able to apply pressure and hopefully get in there with a double strike if our opponent gets a little cheeky with their hand. So Sinister Sickle here is huge. That card is absolutely disgusting in this matchup. And unfortunately he did see it. So something we couldn't account for, but it is what it is. We did get the Shin here. So Shin able to attack for 30k and obviously being combo power afterwards is nice. So we're able to get the damage here, and the opponent is in range. So I don't want to give them extra cards if they don't need it. So we'll just pass. Just attacking you with the Shin kind of wouldn't do too much for us. And here they go set up the Zamasu, potentially to go for another Goku Black here. So smart thing from our opponent here, they do actually attack, and they actually get in the Final Hope Slash as well. There's nothing we can do. We have to take this damage. Now here I was fearful of if they were going to keep going face and how much damage they would apply and what they would play. But here they get back the critical attacker and they play the peel off instead. So opting to not just go for the game, thinking that we'd be able to defend it, instead going for defenses here. So play the Goku Black, play the Goku Black. Now here play the critical attacker. And thankfully they didn't combo, which gave us just enough to be able to hold out for that last attack. Obviously we're going to have to take a critical hit here, but hey, we're in a position where maybe we can go for game. So we're going to go ahead and neg the Vegeta. We're going to swing to be able to draw another card, and we draw into another 0 combo. So not only did we draw a 5k, we drew a 0 after that, which super hurts. But hey, we just still have to go for it. So we're going for 40k, and unfortunately the opponent did have 2 super combos, plus we knew that they had the peel off in there. So the 10ks, 2 10ks wouldn't have gotten there anyways because the double strikes did. And hey, sometimes I do lose these, but these just kind of go to show the back and forth that we go up against in terms of the crit matchup, the fact that we're dealing with low hands. And again, I do think that specifically to Beerus, the Goku Black matchup is probably one of the worst because they're the most explosive. They kind of don't care about your board control, and they're able to loop cards to keep defenses up. So in this regard, I think it's one of the harder matchups. We close, almost got there. I do think if our opponent comboed a little bit more efficiently, they would have gotten there into our face instead. But nevertheless, did lend itself to be a pretty decent match overall. And now for our final replay, we've got green, which obviously we want to know how the green matchup goes. And it kind of depends. Depending on if you're going up against Gohan or whether you're going up against Broly, it could vary based on needing to go wide or needing to go tall. So thankfully with Gohan here, we need to go wide. So I'm optimizing to try to push out as many 20Ks as I can into our opponent to make sure that they can have as little advantage as possible, as well as trying to line up our removal here so that they never have a 5K on board. So something that you need to be aware of if you're going up against Beerus, obviously, is that if you leave a 5K, odds are it's not going to last, which is kind of why I played the Whis in the first place. Gohan likes to play early cantrips. And here we're just going in. Obviously, I'd like to get as many crit hits in as possible to deny Gohan of cards, but the big thing here is to just barrage as many attackers as we can. Here, Gohan still playing on curve, did get the Destructive Strength out, but played it smart here, did combo through, but I know that the way we win this game is by applying wide pressure and trying to account for their secret rare. So here we're going to protect the hit. It's fine. Whis did the job that he needed to. We can go in here with our leader. We can go in with hit and just keep applying as much damage as possible. Especially since we've got the Roshi to be able to awaken. Here we will Roshi, we will awaken because that turns on our 2-drop as well. And kind of one of the reasons we do have the Goku is because being a 25k for 2 can be pretty good for our momentum. So here we awaken, swing for the 25, opponent goes down to 3. The scary thing here is if he's got the Vegeta. If he's got the Vegeta, our board is significantly weaker. but we're kind of hedging on he doesn't, and he does not have it, does have the destructive strength instead, which means we're able to maintain the board and have a big push going into the next turn. We will, again, protect our 20Ks because they're the way that we're able to punch through. And then for this next turn, we do have a lineup of going into a Gohan, which Gohan isn't fantastic here, right? He's a good card. He's not a bad card, but he's effectively, besides being crit, the same as our 2-drop. So it would have been so much sweeter if we had drawn an additional 2-drop here to be able to go 2-drop, especially since our opponent is going to 6 energy and not 7. So we have one more turn of guaranteed going wide to be able to press the game. So we're just going to go ahead and play our Gohan and swing here, hope that there's not too much damage. He blocks it, which is fine. We expected him to combo up. We're forcing more cards out of his hand. And now here could be a little funky. Does play the Selku, which is fine. We have the removal in hand to be able to get rid of it. So we feel comfortable with that. That said, we're not going to defend a 35k swing. We need that combo power on offense. But that Cell can't stick around. We will, however, protect the 5k there for our 2-drop. Cell has to go though, because we cannot allow Gohan to get a free usage of his destruction ability, a free usage of instant Kamehamehas, nothing like that. We drew into the Fuwa, which is huge, makes it way more on curve, and now we can swing with 30k for our leader, which is fantastic. Those are awesome numbers here. Forcing the Gohan to use his ability, goes back down to 6, which means we don't have to deal with Broly for another turn. Still goes up to 7, so we might get our board wiped, but hey, we're going to do our best to apply some damage here. Protects it, stays at 2, but again, pressure, and now he's at 1. And this is a fantastic position, because even if we get our board wiped now, we know that with our leader swing and lining up some specific attacks, we can get there. Here, I do value the swing with the Shin, even though I like protecting it usually, because we know here a secret rare could be coming, and that would be a bad time for us. Obviously, Android 16 and 17 could be a thing here. Instead, opts to go for the life heal and clearing out our board. We're not going to protect our Goku there, but being at 2 life is annoying. Now we kind of might have to lean in on our double striker, but again, I like going wide against Gohan. I don't like going tall. He can blow up his own energy just like he did here, but hey, we forced him to use it early, which is great, which gives us the potential to be able to go in for more attacks after that. So I'm going to swing in here with the hit, force the opponent to combo out, feeling that they have to, and now we can double strike and get rid of the Gohan, which is huge. And now we're going to swing over here, combo away the Shin, and just try to get as many cards out of our opponent's hand as possible. Does see the gigantic meteor, which is a huge buff, does see double super combo and lives. And now I'm feeling a little suspect. I don't have combo power in hand. If the opponent has double striker and leader, we are doomed. Thankfully, that's not the case. Plays the Android 18, but Android 18 does draw cards, which means we're in a tough position, especially since we cannot protect this Goku, especially if he goes and blows up his energy. Now, I will say, here we forced Gohan to have to play the mid-range game, which is really where we want to be. Not being at 7 and 8 means that they're not board wiping us, and it means that they're not going to Broly us. But at the end of the day, they still have really strong 5 and 6 drops, which we need to be aware of. So we force here the combo, just try to get attacks, and we're just trying to string additional cards. Here we do know that we can get rid of the Android 18, which is a big deal. That's additional draw. We cannot deal with that. And the crit hit means that we're not giving Gohan an additional card when they go into their turn. But again, we are still in the danger zone. We could lose to a double striker, but the fact that he's attacking into our Beerus shows to me that that is not the case, and we will protect the Beerus because I value the attack here, especially if the opponent plays something. Now they need to combo into getting rid of it. There isn't a 5-drop that would be able to get there off base. And then we know that we're forcing our opponent to use more cards. Here, they end up using Big Bang instead. We take a crit hit, and this is suspect. Because they can use the leader ability, and depending if that's a super combo, they've already used 3, but they've used 2, one's in the energy. So we're in a tough position here. We swing, force them to use their ability. So now super combo. Do they have a super combo? If they do, we lose. 1-drop, draw. Okay, now it has to be a super combo. We beat a 10k combo out of hand, and we are able to get there, deal the last damage. And this was so close. Honestly, if our opponent saw their 4th super combo, we just lost. Or an instant Kamehameha also would have just lost on the spot. So the matchup can still be tough, but that's where you have to know your differences depending on the green matchup. Do you go wide or do you go tall? And against Gohan, you have to go pedal to the metal, go wide. Do not give him the chance to breathe. You are putting yourself susceptible at the secret rare in that case, but you still just need to play into it. And then hopefully if they do secret rare, you've done enough pressure early on that it doesn't matter, and you can put the step on the gas for that last damage at the end. Beerus is definitely one of the tougher decks to play, not only because it's a crit side leader, and I do personally think that crit type leaders are harder to pilot because you're dealing with so few cards. On top of that, it's a control based leader that really has to gauge what your opponent is playing and how you line up your removal, and because of that, it's a little bit more punishing depending on how you play or misplay. Even myself, to this day, I still make misplays with the deck. I try to keep playing it just to get a little bit better, but like you guys saw with my Goku Black matchup, I don't win every match. With all my decks, I don't win every match. But I think it's important to show you guys the kind of back and forth that you can have and hopefully allow you to get a little bit deeper understanding of exploring how certain matchups go. I do think it's also important that when we're talking about a crit leader, seeing how the matchup is against other crit leaders and against regular leaders as well. Nevertheless, I think Beerus is a great leader, has a fun time, and will only ever scale to be better as we get more red cards because of how generically good he is. It's been Archetype 101. I hope you guys learned something, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.